Welcome, everyone, and happy Monday. And man, we are right at halftime of the year. Tomorrow we start the second half. And this particular session that we're going to go through today is one that I do at the beginning of the year, and we revisit it again at halftime because this is usually that time of year where we're evaluating are the things that we desire to have working in our business working? Is there a new direction that I should be taking with my business? And we're going to propose today that the direction we're going to offer you may be just the thing that sets you up for a great second half and for a spectacular 2026 season, should you choose to really embrace it. So, I'm going to pull some slides up real quick. And in fact, do me a favor in the chat. Put what city and state you're with us from today. Let's find out who we've got out there and kind of that'll give me a sense of kind of the markets and who I'm talking to. So in the chat, we've got Molly in Sugar Hill, Lakeland, Columbus, Ohio, Lakeland, Florida's here in force. Man, we got multiple Lakelands. Fantastic. Chattanooga, Jennifer, how you doing? KW Erie, PA, Waco. I used to live in Waco, Jason. San Antonio, hey Barbara. Twin Falls, love me some Twin Falls, Idaho. Gosh, we got an awesome group here today. Fantastic. All right, so obviously somebody in Lakeland, Florida is pushing this message out because we've got Lakeland here in massive force. And let's go to work. And before we jump in, let me pull the slides up. We got to do a couple of things just to make sure that we keep us out of legal trouble. And as you know, our industry's become very litigious. Excuse me. And today we'll be talking about having conversations. And some of them are going to be on the phone, some are going to be by text. And we're just going to remind you to follow the whole TCPA, do not call compliance thing out there. We're not going to go through this word for word. You know the rules, obey them, stay on them. And there you go. All right, let me stop the share on this for a second. So let's talk about this journey. And I want to start off today with this. And as we navigate this time in our industry, and maybe you're beginning to realize this, maybe it'll come and it'll get highlighted today, and you'll have maybe a thought around what I'm about to share. But what I'm finding is that, and of course, I'm finding that some of our coaching clients, I'm finding out in the field that the people in the industry are really beginning to realize that there's this deep need. If I'm going to have a really great real estate business, there's this need for me to move from transactional to relational. And defined another way, how do I move from chasing business to attracting business? And we're going to give you the framework right here in a moment, and then we're going to build upon this framework for how do you really move to the type of business where you attract the business that you desire, where you wake up on January 1 of each year not worried about, you know, can I do it again? Where you wake up knowing where maybe your first 36, 48, or 148 transactions are coming from because you built the business foundation that way. You truly built a business versus, well, I think a lot of real estate agents, honestly, folks, have a high paid sales job. And they're in the job of chasing, 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 chasing. And I want to offer you a different option. And it's like, how do I attract all the business that I need, and maybe bring some joy to it? And maybe that's the thing for you to begin in the second half. And so let's go to the framework that we're going to build upon today. And like I said, if you've been on with me before, by the way, if we haven't met, my name's Steve Schlueter. I'm a MAPS coach. Prior to Keller Williams, I was one of the top 20 REMAX agents in the state of Texas, and then got courted by Gary Keller to be a team leader in one of his offices. Actually, I had Gary Keller as my operating principal for 4.5 years as a team leader. And then operate a couple of market centers in the Austin area. I'm a bold coach, part of our Keller Williams University Master Faculty, and a coach of our Never Ending Referrals program. And I'm the guy also who, if you're familiar with DT, I'm the guy that invented that crazy little system that thousands of agents around the country love to hate, but it makes them killer productive. and they love it for that purpose. And Megan, if you'll monitor the chat for me, since my co-coach in Never Ending Referrals, Tammy Yunks, is on vacation, celebrating her birthday, and so I'll be flying solo today. All right, so let's go to this framework for building a relationship-based business, making that pivot from transactional chasing business to actually attracting business. And we're going to build off of this framework today. And again, if you've been with me before, you've likely heard this, and we're going to build on it very specifically today. And so this little something right here is something we call the trust triangle. Now, let me give you its origin. The trust triangle comes from Harvard University. And Harvard was doing a study around leaders, business leaders, who had done a really great job of developing a culture of trust. Their people really trusted the leader. And they said at the core were these three things. Now, when I heard this being discussed by Gary Keller, I said, you know, this is exactly the way we build trust with our database. The formula is actually the same. And how important is trust? Well, when you have trust, and we're in crazy wackadoo times like we are right now in our industry, if you've got that foundation of trust with many in your database, they listen to you, they ask you, they trust what you say. And so establishing this foundation is actually the key to moving buyers and sellers off the fence today, and to building that foundation for a relationship-based business, I should say. So with that said, let's go back to this and just kind of peel this back for a moment. And so what the Harvard University study said, that trust was established primarily around these 3 points. And I'm going to have you think about this today as we go through this, that for you to develop that position of trust with your database, in fact, I would take this slide, I'd take a screenshot of this, and I would put it up on the wall, and I would meditate on it. I would ruminate on it. I would think on it. And because this is how it works for you, and it's no different. If I want my database to really trust me as the authority, as the real estate authority, there's these 3 points I've got to deliver on. So what you're ruminating on is, how did I deliver on these 3 points? And we're going to give you a few steps of it today. Well, the first is the logic point. So the people in your database have to know that you can do it. They need to know that your reasoning and judgment are sound. That, in other words, that you know your stuff. You know your market. You know the ebbs and flows. You know how to interpret the opportunities of the market. So they actually believe that you're actually the authority, not the news, not anybody else. They trust you as the real estate authority. Now, on the right side, on the bottom, you'll see the word empathy. Now, going back to the Harvard study said that the folks that followed the leader that they trusted, they felt like the person really was vested in and cared about their well-being and success. And so, same thing. How do we deliver that experience to the people in our database that we really care about them? We care about their well-being. We're on the look out for them. And we're going to talk about that today. And the third point on the trust triangle was authenticity. I experienced the real you, the genuine, authentic you. This is a big deal. And boy, in fact, we have a whole section at Never Ending Referrals in session 2 where we go through, how do you succeed with your database being authentically yourself? Because here's what I've found in my years of coaching, my years in a bold room. And it is that it seems just about every behavioral style has some kind of mental hang up around having conversations with their database. The high social is afraid they're bothering people. The high assertive doesn't like chit chat, small talk. And this is why such a small percentage of agents are really having the vital conversations that they need to have with the people to establish that foundation of an attracting type business, of a relationship-based business. So all that said, we're going to kind of peel back and how do we deliver on some of those points today? And it really, honestly, it does start with a conversation. Susan Scott, the great author who is the author of a book called Fierce Conversations, she said, the conversation is the relationship. At the end of the day, for us to truly be in relationship with somebody, it's got to be built on a series of conversations. Now, not all of them are over the phone or text or face to face, and some are going to be, messenger, but it's in our messaging and in our messages. And yet there's a really important foundation that happens when we actually have a dialogue with somebody. We actually talk to them versus maybe hiding behind emails or other campaigns or social posts. And I want to share with you a story to highlight this. And I imagine everyone out there that you have people that um, maybe you're out of touch with, and maybe, man, a reconnect is in order. And maybe you're really fearing reconnecting because, man, it's been years. And our hallucination is they're going to give us a piece of their mind when we call them, saying, you haven't called me in 4 years. And here's the truth, folks. They're not thinking about us. They're not thinking about you. They're busy with life. But I want to highlight how important this is. And I'm going to highlight it through a story. And it was a lesson that I was taught from one conversation that has dramatically changed, how I approach this topic. And so, gosh, a number of years ago, I'm driving down the interstate and I get a phone call. And on my dashboard, it says Barbara DeLamo. And my first response is, who's Barbara DeLamo? I don't recognize the name. I do recognize the phone number as being a San Antonio phone number because it's got a 210 area code. I live in San Antonio, so I'm going, Barbara, who's Barbara? I must know Barbara. She's in San Antonio. And so, in a moment of having to make a decision, do I answer, do I not answer, let it go at the voicemail? I decided to take the call and I pressed the button on my steering wheel. And now, by the way, don't judge me for what I did. You'd probably done the same thing. I said, hey, Barb, what's going on? Just like I knew who Barb was. And by the way, Kat, I didn't have a clue who Barb was. I was like, who is this person? Who's this person calling me? Didn't have a clue. Going, hey, Kat, Barb, what's going on? And she goes, well, now I'm going to use Barbara's voice a little bit. She's a wonderful Southern lady. She goes, well, hi, Steve. And I go, well, hey, Barbara, what's going on? What can I do for you? She goes, well, hey, I was just calling to wish you a happy birthday. Now, guys, it's like July 9th, and my birthday is not till July 31st. By the way, write that down. I got a birthday coming up in a few weeks. I'll take a birthday greeting from you. And I said, Barb, thanks, but you're a little early. And she goes, I know I wanted to be the first one. Am I the first one? I'm going, yeah, you're either the first or the last, Barbara. I mean, you're definitely the first. And again, I'm still going, who's this lady? I have no idea who Barb is. And then here's what happened. Barb said, Steve, are you still coaching Bold? And I said, as a matter of fact, I am. She goes, oh, I took the first Bold you ever taught in San Antonio back in 2009. I love Bold. And she talked about Bold for a few moments, asked me about Bold and context for the conversation. And which, just made, I wasn't crazy. It's like, there's the context. And then she said, I know in one of our Bold classes, we had a sponsor. It was your girlfriend sponsored a session. What was her name? I said, Shelly. Yeah. She goes, you guys still together? I said, we sure are. And she asked about Shelly and, where is she working? And we had a brief little conversation about that. And then she said, Steve, I know you were originally from the San Antonio area. You mentioned, possibly even moving back to the area. Did you ever make that move? I said, well, as a matter of fact, Barbara, I did 2 years ago. And she said, man, I guess I missed on that one. And I said, well, hey, Barb, of course, I'm a realtor representing myself. And then she asked me, what are you loving about San Antonio? And we had a nice little conversation about that. She gave me a couple of tips on a couple of brunch places, date night type places. And then she said, "So what kind of big plans you and Shelly have coming up in the next, over the next few months?" And I said, "Well, we got a trip to Egypt." And so the whole conversation was less than 6 minutes. And I went from going, "Who the heck is Barbara DeLamo?" to feeling completely connected to Barbara. 6 minutes. Now, what did Barbara do in that little conversation? What did y'all catch? Go into the chat. What did Barbara do that created that connection? And all of a sudden, man, I'm feeling really at ease connected with this person. What'd she do? Ah, yes, Armin. Rich. Yep. She mentioned my mate. Yep, Cheryl. She remembered details. She asked questions. She engaged me. Hey, Marilyn, good to see you. Hey, Boston is in the house there, Marilyn. Good to see you out there. She asked about your life, right? And Marilyn was one of those early bold classes about the same time Barbara would have been back in the day. So trust you're doing well. Um,
Yes,
so
I'm sorry, I'm getting ready and I'll come off mute. Yes, I was just thinking that you were my first, not only were you the first bold, you were my first MAPS coach hire. And then as you know, we stayed together a few years. So I love you. I love anything you teach. That's why I'm here. So
you're awesome. Thanks for
good
being
to
out
see you.
there.
You're welcome. Bye.
Give the Corys and all those folks my best out there too. So let's dive into this. So now, by the way, it would have been one thing. So I hung up the phone and I said, "Man, I just got forwarded." And Barbara asked about Shelley family. She asked about bold occupation. What are we loving about San Antonio recreation? What kind of big future plans we have coming up, dreams, goals. We talked about the trip to Egypt, and I'm going. I hung up the phone, and I just got forwarded. And I said, "Man, that was powerful. And it was very natural. There was nothing contrived or weird about it. And I don't know that she intended to go through all that. It was just what happened. But it just highlighted the power of what a simple forward conversation could do. Now, it would be one thing if that was all there was to the story. But let me tell you the rest of the story. And the rest of the story is this. And this was the big highlight that if you catch nothing else from today's session, take this, chew on it, ruminate on it. You um, I noticed when I hung up that it didn't say Barbara DeLamo on the dash. It said maybe Barbara DeLamo. And on an iPhone, when it shows up as maybe, it's not that they're in your contacts, they're in your correspondence. And so that got me really curious. As I'm driving home, I'm going, where have I been connecting with Barbara? And so when I get home, I pulled up my email. And I want to share with you what I found when I pulled up my email. And that is that I had been receiving an email from Barbara about every 3 weeks on average for 7 years. About every 3 weeks on average for 7 years. And here's the interesting thing about that. If I'm receiving an email from her every 3 weeks for 7 years and I get a phone call and my response is, "Who the heck is Barbara?" What's the lesson here? Feel free to come off mute. What's the lesson that we've got to take away from that?
Hey, Steve, Rich here in Sacramento.
Hey, man, fire away.
Hey, great to see you again. Always
Yeah.
love your content and everything you got going on, and appreciate the class here today.
Yes, sir.
People love to hear from you. People love to hear from us, right? Not many people can connect the way we as realtors can.
Mm-hmm.
We're trained in this profession. We practice these conversation models. And if you're truly a professional, you really will care. Had
Yeah.
she picked up that phone a few more times, right? You might have been helped. She might have been able to help you find a better location or something that fit your needs a little bit more. And you probably would have had her number stored.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's right, Rich. Yeah.
Right. And how long did it take you to move from when she met you? How long did it take for you to move back to San Antonio area?
Oh gosh, that was 6 years later.
And had you had any referrals moving to San Antonio in 6 years?
Oh yeah, she could have been my go-to person for San Antonio.
So we all heard that, right?
Yeah, she could have been my go-to person. In fact, after she did, I actually did send her, a referral, and yet created that opportunity. So, thanks, Rich. Appreciate it, man. Somebody
Thank
else.
you.
There's another lesson here I want y'all to take away. What's the other lesson? Okay, Eric's got it in the chat. He said personal contacts wins over emails every time. See, here's what I can imagine. Barbara thought she was doing the right thing. She obviously had an email campaign going to her database, and which is great. The truth is, though, because she and I did not have the foundation of the conversation, her email, her outreach was falling flat. I'm sure her open rate was way below what it could have or should have been. And here's the interesting thing. A couple of weeks later, after the conversation, I get not the call, the email from Barbara. And what do? I actually opened it. And 3 weeks later, I get another one. I opened it. Didn't necessarily read them for word, but now because we are in flow, because we've got this connection established, now her emails are working. Anything she would be doing from a marketing standpoint now becomes dramatically more effective because she built the foundation of the relationship on a conversation. And continuing to build that on conversations becomes vital. So let's go back to the screen here in just a moment, but I want to kind of just shift gears. And so I want to go back to what we talked about at the beginning, where we went through the trust triangle. And we said that second point on the lower right of the triangle was empathy. And, empathy is connecting with people, demonstrating that they're important, caring about them, their well being, asking about them. And so, if you're not familiar with Ford, let's go back here. And then, by the way, there's that, got those emails from Barbara. This is a simple conversation model. If you're always looking for how do I connect with somebody, these are the 4 key points. And why do they work so well? Is because these 4 points, family and friends, occupation, recreation, dreams, are typically people's highest values. These are the things that they value most. And these are the big parts of their life. And so they have commentary on these with skillful, engaging questions around Ford. You open up a dialogue, and you control the question, but the conversation, but you don't dominate the conversation. You let that person have more time of possession. They hold the conversation through you asking great questions. And so the first kind of tactic today is around empathy, and how do I use Ford to really connect and incorporate it into my conversations. Now, this could work a couple of different ways. We're gonna use Ford in a moment to introduce a business topic and to kind of soften a business call. We can also have it be the only purpose of a call. If I hadn't talked to Rich in a long time, or Marilyn, it's been a long time since I spoke to Marilyn. If I reached out and said, gosh, it's nice to have you on, saw your name there, what's been going on? And I would just want to reconnect with Marilyn. And what's been going on in Boston? Tell me about your career, your life. And, gosh, I'm going to be up in New England and Bedford, New Hampshire doing Bold. If I fly through Boston one week, maybe we got to get together. There's all these things that I could do just to reconnect. And that's all I have to do and take the moment to reset the relationship that maybe I've been out of touch with. And then let's shift gears on this a little bit. But I want to go to the second tactic. So Ford, I could have strictly a Ford conversation, or I could weave Ford into a business conversation. And that's where we're going to go next. How do I leverage Ford to soften business purpose calls? And so tactic number two is how do I add that business element to a conversation so that I begin to hit the logic point? So Ford gets the empathy. And by the way, I can make it very authentic, real, connect. And yet maybe authentically, I'm more of a high assertive behavior. I prefer business conversations versus how is Fluffy and the dog and all this stuff. Um, Yet I still got to connect with people. I've got to let them know that I care about them. And yet I also want to deliver on the logic part, which is we know the market, we know what's happening here. Trust us to keep you informed, not the media that is confusing much of our public. And so here's where we go from here. If we're going to hit on that next point on the trust triangle, which is logic. Um, and when I think about logic, write this down somewhere. So the logic part is about you demonstrating that you have market and industry knowledge and savvy. You want them to know that you've got the knowledge, the perspective, the savvy, that you're the one who really knows what's going on out there and can be a good guide for them in all their real estate needs. Now, here's something, Garrett, to do that, you're going to have to master something. It's something we do in one of our sessions in Never Ending Referrals, is you're going to have to master the message of the moment and what we call MOFers. And we'll talk about what that is in just a minute. So in fact, write this down. Here's what Gary Keller said. I'm going to give you Gary Keller's quote. He said, the agent that masters the message of the moment, and by the way, he said this as we were going into the shift. He said, it's the agent that masters the message of the moment that matches their market, combined with the right MOFers, that's going to win the market. Let me say that a different way. It's the agent with the right message that matches the market. It's the agent with the right message that matches the market, combined with the right MOFers, that's going to win the market. It's the agent with the right messages that match the market, combined with the right MOFers, that's going to win the market. Now let's talk about what that means. The consumer is extremely confused today. They're uncertain. There's a lot of clickbait, fear mongering out there. Markets are going to crash, you name it. And in fact, we do a whole nother session on that. In fact, we'll tell you about another session next week you can get on at the end, where we're going to talk about just messaging and what are those second half messages that are vital right now for you to get to more kitchen tables in the second half of the year. We've just got too much to cover in this session to do that today. So when we go back to messages that match the market, combined with the right MOFers, MOFIR, MOFR stands for make offer for immediate response. So the MOFR is the invitation to sit down at a kitchen table or come into your office and explore the opportunities of the market. The message is the hook that creates the reason for them to do that. And that's where those two things come together, message and MOFR. So to give you an idea here, let's go here. And these are my markets. I know every market is different. Possible messages, can't say the word messages, possible messages that match your market. In my market, in Austin, we were at 117 list to sales price ratio during the boom. Now we're at about 94 to 95. And so buyers get breathing room, list price to sales price ratio. And I can build a message around that theme and what the opportunity is. Right now, we're now past peak season, and I'll start a campaign towards the fall of buy the dip, which is, there are advantages to buying off peak time And usually we see median price take a slight deep dip off peak time, and we see list to sales price ratio more advantageous, concessions up, and so we can build a story or a message around that. In my market, there's great opportunities to negotiate real well on concessions. I can build a message. The future of interest rates down here. I could combine concession and interest rates and say, and build a message that says, did you know that you can still get 5.5% 30-year fixed rate loan right now? And the truth is, it's going to take 5 discount points. And based upon list to sales price ratios and so forth in my market, I can build a message that you can negotiate the concessions to make that happen in my market today. Here's one on timing the market. In fact, next week on the special class we'll do on messaging, I wrote an email this morning on how in the shift book, Gary talks about the safe zone and how we're in many of our markets in the safe zone and what that opportunity is. So that's an example of messaging. And for you to be this logic person, you've got to be very clear on what the opportunities of your market are, what the message is around those opportunities to help combat the noise. And then the MOFR is the invitation to sit down. So the MOFR that we've been running very successfully is if you have any possible interest in, first you run the message, and then at the bottom of the message is the MOFR. And it might be something like, if you have any possible interest in buying or selling a home in the next 12 to 24 months, find out why right now might be the right time. Call me to schedule a no obligation strategy session. And it's as simple as that. It's message and MOFR. So that being said, let's dive into making a business call. And we reach out to somebody. And I want us to go back and think about this thing called Ford again. And if I want to have a business conversation, one of the biggest hangups folks have in reaching out to their database for a business call is they don't want to feel like they're just calling for a sale, or that it's all business, and we don't want people to feel uncomfortable. And so that causes us maybe to avoid the business conversation. Or you're in a Ford conversation and then you're really connecting, but you're going, I don't know how to get this from connecting now to business. And it feels weird, in that I don't want them to feel like that was really the purpose of the call. So we're going to give you a framework so that never happens. And that every call begins and ends with them feeling connected with you and having a value-driven business conversation embedded within that call. In fact, we'll be following up with you, actually sending you the actual written out conversation here, and my assistant and I will role model it for you in just a moment, and we'll walk you through this. So let me give you the framework for this. And the framework is really this simple. We call it the Ford sandwich. And this is making me hungry looking at it, a big sandwich. The Ford sandwich. Now, remember Ford, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. And so how do I bring this business element into a conversation so that now I deliver on the logic point, the empathy point, and the authenticity point all in one conversation? And we call that the care conversation, which we'll go through next. But here's the framework. And I want you to listen for this in a moment when we role model this for you. Whoops, let me get back where. It starts with simply the salutation, which is the introduction of the call. And then I'm going to open with a Ford question. And actually, even in the salutation, I'm going to tell them the business purpose of the call before I ever get started. Then I ask the Ford question. Based upon what they answer, an appropriate follow-up question. By the way, here's the rule. If you're always concerned about what do I say next, I ask them a question and they say something. The rule is this. The next question is embedded in the answer to the first question. So you just actively listen and you stay curious, and based on how they answer the initial Ford question, you ask appropriate follow-up question. And then you transition it to the purpose of the call. In this case, we'll say the business purpose of the call. Um, then after the business purpose of the call is completed, I'm going to close with a forward question, follow that up appropriately, and wrap up the call. It's really that simple. And of course, what's going to help me with the business purpose of the call is knowing my messages, my mofers, my savvy around the market, my interpretation of the market. So my assistant Megan and I are going to role model this for you. And Megan, are you out there?
Yep.
All right, perfect. And so, by the way, somebody out there, if you would do me a favor, somebody out there, would you time this? So when I open the call with ring ring, I want you to time it. And then when we're done, stop your timer and tell us how long this call was. And then we're going to clear out what did the call accomplish. All right. So somebody got the timer for me? Put in the chat if you got the timer for me.
Cat's
Okay,
got it.
Kat. Thank you, Kat. All right. So when I start off with ring ring, Kat, you'll start the timer. Ring ring.
Hello.
Hey, Megan, Steve Schlueter over at Keller Williams. How you doing today?
Good. How about you?
Ah, fantastic. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Megan, it's just great to catch up with you. Reason I was calling today, I've been getting a lot of questions from friends and clients. What's going on with the real estate market? There seems to be a lot of confusion out there about, what's happening with interest rates. Is the market going up? Is it going down? Is it going to crash? And I thought I'd just reach out and shed some light on things. And before I get into that, though, just tell me what is the family got going on for summertime? That little boy of yours, how old is he now?
He's 6.
6 years old,
Mm-hmm.
man. Derek, Luke, right?
Luke. Mm-hmm.
Luke, yeah. Gosh, what's Luke got going this summer?
He's doing camps about every other week and then just hanging out with mom and dad, getting some pool and some beach time and, living the life of a 6-year-old.
Living life. Is he a big beach guy? Does he like the water?
He loves the water.
Oh, fantastic! That's so much fun, especially living in Florida. There, it's you gotta take advantage of all that. Hey, well, Megan, the reason I was calling, like I said, a lot of confusion going on out there in the real estate space, and like I said, I thought I'd just shed some light on things a little bit, and just curious, what do you know or what are you hearing about the real estate market, here in Pensacola?
I've noticed, we probably have 4 or 5 houses for sale in our neighborhood. Seems like they're sitting a lot longer than normal. So guessing the market's kind of slowing down.
Yeah, it has absolutely taken a breath, and and it's easy to notice when the signs stay up a little bit longer, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And the market's taken a little breath, which I got to tell you has been a healthy thing. I know, I'm sure you know a lot of people that bought during COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and it was insane. There was nothing to choose from, and so right now the good thing is we've got a little bit of inventory, yet a really still solid, stable market. And yet people have choices today, which is kind of nice. So yeah, sounds like maybe you've been watching the market a little bit. You guys been pondering something yourself?
Oh, we've been pondering maybe a move. My husband's been interviewing for a new job. And where we are currently, it'd be about a 30-minute commute.
Mm-hmm.
He's not much of a morning person, so we've been looking at neighborhoods a little bit closer.
Yeah, wow. You're actually actively kind of diving in here a little bit, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, in fact, so in any particular community that you have more in mind than others?
We've kind of been looking at Pace. It's in the same county school district as where we are currently, which is
Ah,
a good school district. But it'd only be about 10 miles to the office from there. So,
yeah. Well, I tell you what, Megan, I know this is kind of something in the works. I don't know if it's premature or not. Just to help y'all kind of evaluate all the opportunities of maybe the job choice, and all this. Would you like to maybe have me come by? I'd be happy to do a little strategy session with you guys on, maybe how we position the current house and timing and how you make all that work. Would that be of value to you guys?
Yeah, that'd be very helpful because if it happens, it's going to have to happen fast before school starts. So,
Wow. Well, let's definitely get together then, do a little strategic planning around that. How's Saturday look for y'all? If we just schedule an appointment, blah, 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 blah,
yeah.
blah. And okay, well, Megan, that's great. Well, exciting news. We'll see how things develop and we'll kind of get our little strategy kind of ironed out so we can move fast, should that happen. So, Megan, other than maybe a big move coming down the road, what other kind of adventures y'all have on the horizon coming up?
Talking about taking the little one to a water park.
Okay.
And then we found out over spring break he really likes water slides, and there's one about an hour from us. And then just some family birthdays, and that's it.
The birthdays are great. Yeah. When is Luke's birthday? When does he have his?
He's March. He's always over spring break.
Always over spring break. Well, that's
Hmm.
perfect. He's got off of school automatically. Well, Megan, it was great to connect with you. I look forward to seeing you guys on Saturday. Saturday, we'll dive in a little bit and see what we can explore.
Sounds good.
All right. Talk to you then.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. End of conversation. Kat, how long was that? 4 minutes and 54 seconds. So less than 5 minutes. So, I want to clear this out because we call this the care conversation. We're going to send this to you all written out, so you have the framework and all of this. And yet, what did you take away? What did we accomplish with that conversation? And how could you use that conversation?
I felt like it was very natural, Steve, and it certainly, when you say it's only 4 minutes, it was very, you were so connected when you were having it. Like it was a deeper, it didn't feel rushed. I like the pace and the tempo. You don't realize, I think you think when you go to call, it's going to take more time. And the
Mhm.
fact that it was less than 5 minutes is kind of a aha. So
Yeah.
thank you for modeling it too.
Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn.
Helpful to hear it.
Say that again.
It's helpful to hear it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To
Yeah.
listen to it, the tone and how you guys, it's just helpful to hear the whole back and forth.
Mhm. Well, and so what else? Give me some more ahas out there. Thank you, Marilyn. So Kat says, didn't feel like under 5 minutes at all. Felt relaxed and rushed, said Phil, or not rushed, rather. Felt
Hello.
real. Go ahead.
Hello.
Go
Hello.
ahead. Yeah.
Yes. And if you wouldn't make the call, you wouldn't follow up, you will miss the sale
Yeah. Yeah. You got that. I
because
mean,
they were already looking.
hmm yeah. How easily could I have missed that? That an on-site builder could have referred him to an agent, and I just missed out. And so many opportunities are just like that. It's like this is why GTD2 that is so important to have that quarterly conversation. Thank you, Martha. Yeah.
Yes.
Sounded easy to connect from both ends, said Carol. Barbara, I like the way you stated the purpose of the call at the beginning and then segued to Ford and then segued to the question, what has she noticed about the market? Big takeaway, Barbara. That is that now, if I tell them in the very beginning that there's a business element to the call, it's never weird when I go to business because I already said I was going to. In fact, when I say before I get into all that though, tell me what's going on with that little son of yours or whatever, forward question you might be going into it with. And if you're not sure what to ask somebody, go to their social media, see what's been going on in their life. There's a forward question somewhere on their feed that they've posted that you can build off of something that they've got going on, and you can say, "Ah, I saw online," and that can lead you right into the forward dialogue. Now, the question that I asked her was a big one, and the question I asked was, "What do you know, or what are you hearing about the real estate market here in Pensacola?" And I said Pensacola because they live outside Pensacola, and rather than give her an update on all the things going on in the market and all the opportunities, I want her perspective. I want to know what the tide is that might be running against so that I have the right message that really matters to this person versus just throwing up market of the moment stuff. And so, that being said, that question, what do you know or what are you hearing about the market here in blank? Now, I want you to write this down, and you're going to get this on the paper we send you to. Whatever they answer, your response is either going to be to validate what they said or educate around what they said. If it's validate, you're validating how they're accurate because they have a right depiction of the market, which I did validate. I also educated in that even though we have more inventory, it's really a good thing because we have choices in the market today. People aren't having to settle the way they did during COVID. So based upon their answer, you're going to either educate or validate or educate, maybe both in some instances. And this is an opportunity to really demonstrate and bring that logic component in, because even when they're right and you tell them how they're right, you're really you're really demonstrating that you have that depth of perspective that is shedding light on what they already know, but they don't understand all the dynamics of. So that's that one. All right. So that was the care conversation. We have one last conversation to hit on before we're done today. And, I go back to an interview on Never Ending Referrals we did with a great agent. This gentleman was doing about 170, 80 transactions a year as an agent before he made a transition into a full-time coaching career. And in our interview that we had with him, he said, I typically would do about 90 to 105 transactions a year from my database. And then I would go gut out the other 75 or 80 with, door knocking. And he said, it never occurred to me until later that I could have done that a lot easier if I had just doubled the size of my database. And I hadn't gotten intentional about building my database. It had just kind of grown organically through past clients. And so if I could have taken a year to really intentionally grow it, another year to nurture those new relationships into a really powerful place. And those other 80 transactions could have come from right there instead of having to gut it out with, all these sales techniques. And it was a really interesting day where some of you on here might be going, I don't have a big enough database. To accomplish the goals I desire, or maybe because the industry's in a little dip out there, maybe I'm not pulling as much from my database as I desire. If I wanted to go out and grow it, how might I grow it quickly? Or more importantly, how do I grow it intentionally with people who really want to know me? And so in the last 10 minutes, we're going to spend on a little something called business to business. And we have a whole section of Never Ending Referrals dedicated to this. And you look at this guy right here and you think about this guy, he's like thinking, well, where do I find the handyman, lawyer, dentist, mechanic, so on? This is your client that's moving into your area from another part of the country. And they have left all their relationships behind. They don't have any of them. And where are they going to go to get connected to those right relationships? And ideally, they're going to come to you. And we've got a little thing called the 5-star conversation. And I'll put it back up there in a minute. But Megan and I are going to role model this one as well. And for the sake of time, I'm not going to do the Ford sandwich around it. But Kat, if you'll go ahead and time it again. And of course, the Ford sandwich would add a little bit of time, not much. So we'll say the Ford sandwich would add probably a minute and a half, maybe a minute 15 to what we're about to do. And so what we're doing now is I'm reaching out to my database and I'm actually going to grow my database with warm business to business referrals from my relationships that I already have in my database. So these are going to be warm referrals in terms of building a business network. So Megan, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, cat's on the clock, ready to go. Um, ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Megan, Steve Schlueter over at Keller Williams. How you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Megan, the reason I was calling today, we're working on a little project, and I thought you could help. Um, Megan, you can imagine as a real estate agent, I've got people coming to town from all over the parts of the country, coming here to Pensacola, and they get here and, well, they don't have the relationships that they need. They don't know who to, what plumber to get and all this. And we're building a directory. We call it our 5-star directory of curated, really best people that we can provide a directory of services for people new to the community and for our friends and clients like yourself. We'll tell you how to get access to this. But I was wondering if you could help me with an introduction. And I was just curious when you think about the last month or two. Has there been anybody that just that provides service to you, or you went and partook in their service, and somebody really blew you away with a really what I call a 5-star exceptional experience that might be a good fit for us to refer to others?
Yeah. So as you know, this winter we randomly got about 6 inches of snow in Florida. And it sat on us for about a week, so all of our plants died. So we had a great company, Three Trees Landscaping, that came out and got us new plants. They trimmed up some trees, worked on seeding our yard, did a
Mm.
really excellent job, and got it looking very nice for the summertime.
Oh, fantastic. Three Trees Landscaping. Do you
Hmm.
happen to have an individual out of Three Trees I could reach out to?
Yeah, I'd ask for Mike.
Ask for Mike. Okay,
Mhm.
perfect. I'd get the number. And hey, Megan, thanks for your help with that. I'll reach out to Mike and see if we can't get Three Trees on board with that. And by the way, when I reach out to Mike, Megan, would it be okay if I used your name and said you connected us? Would that be okay?
Sure.
Ah, perfect. Hey, maybe there's another introduction you can help me with. One of the this past spring during tax season, I got a lot of requests for CPA. And honestly, my guy retired here a while back, and I just don't have that great CPA to refer. And I was just curious, do you happen to have an introduction to what I'd call that exceptional 5-star CPA that you might be able to help with?
I don't. I actually do our own taxes, so I might
Ah,
need one to help me get more money back.
well, I tell you what, would you like an introduction like that, or you think that might be helpful for y'all?
Yeah, if you find somebody, sure,
Okay.
put me in contact.
Okay, well, I will do that, Megan, as soon as I, make that connection. I know with our network being as vast as it is, that I'm going to come across that person pretty quickly, and as soon as I do, I'll get you connected up and do an introduction. Okay,
Sounds good.
perfect. Hey, and by the way, as soon as this directory is available, we'll let you know how to access it. So if there's any kind of resource you need, I mean, we're gonna have everything from caterers to where to get a birthday cake, all those good things will be in there. Uh,
Awesome.
yeah, and Megan, by the way, just so you know, as I'm sure you know, our real estate market's been kind of crazy of late, and um, any questions about the market and anything there that you might have while I have you?
I don't think so. We're just
Ah,
hanging out in our 3% interest rate house right now.
yeah, I tell you, isn't that a wonderful thing? Wonderful thing. Hey, Megan, thanks so much for taking my call. I appreciate the referral to Mike over at Three Trees. And as soon as I get that CPA connection, I'll get us wired up together. Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Thank you, Megan.
Hmm.
End of call. Kat, how long were we? Let's see how long we went. 4 minutes, 1 second. Now, that would have been a 5.5 minute call with Ford Sandwich if I had taken Ford and put it in there. And by the way, let's look at what we accomplished in there. Uh, I've demonstrated that I'm adding a value added service for my clients, including Megan, in terms of the directory. I got a warm business to business referral with Mike at Three Trees Landscaping. In fact, we have a whole business to business strategy in Never Ending Referrals, we walk you through so that now Mike becomes a valued part of your database. I've got her wanting to have a CPA connection. So when I do in my network, remember here that I said network, not my database. People don't want to be part of somebody's database. And so as my network being as vast as it is, I know I'll find that person. And by the way, I will, and I might find it on the next phone call. Except here's the thing, I'm not going to stop asking people in my database that I'm calling with the 5-star conversation about CPA until maybe I've found a couple. See, I'm not looking for just the CPA. I'm also looking for people who have the need so that I can match them up with the need. And so I might have 8 people that desire a CPA connection, and I might find 2 CPAs. Now, when I connect with the CPAs in that initial business conversation, which we help you with, I've got warm introductions for them right out of the get-go. And that's going to build that relationship at a really high level. All right, a couple of things real quick. And Megan, if you will drop in the chat, I know we talked a lot about messaging. If you'd like to join us next Monday for another free session, we're going to be doing one strictly on messaging, resetting your messages for the second half. It's at 10 a.m. Central next week. Here's the QR code. Just drop the link in the chat there, Megan, if you will, for this. Do we have that link? Megan?
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay, perfect. Now, for the rest of you, for all of you actually, what I would also like to invite you to do is next Monday at noon Central, we kick off our Never Ending Referrals, 8 lessons of Never Ending Referrals. And here's a broad outline of what they are. We'll send you that outline in in an email as well with the conversations we're going to send you. But if you'd like to really master these kind of conversations, if you really want to go from maybe a business of chasing to a business of attracting, if you desire to build that relationship-based business, join us for our Never Ending Referrals coaching program. We kick off on July 7th. To be a part of our community, it's simple. It's $39 a month. It's a minimum 5-month commitment. We are live with the lessons of Never Ending Referrals 3 Mondays at noon Central a month. We conclude each quarter with a market of the moment conversation where we get into what are the messages that are going to drive you to more kitchen tables today. We keep this as a community because we've got folks that have been with us, I think, 16, 20 times through our programs. I think about Thomas Baker. I think he's 16 times through Never Ending Referrals, if I recall. So if you'd like to join us on that journey, links in the chat to register for Never Ending Referrals, or you can go to the QR code here, or go to mapscoaching.com and search Never Ending Referrals. All right, questions or thoughts before we wrap up here? Give me a couple of ahas. I always want to make sure you took something of value away. Hey, Marilyn, going to be with us next Monday. Awesome. You can unmute. You can go to the chat. Kat, you're welcome. Thanks for being our timekeeper.
Hey, Steve, it's Molly Stone. I have a quick question for you.
Sure, Molly.
I have a lot of people in my database who don't answer the phone, but they're super responsive on text. I'm trying to make sure I'm not just being passive and wanting to take an easy route, but do you find it's okay to adapt these if you're just not getting people to answer, to do this in a text format? Or
I think that this could be that's a great question, Molly, and thank you. One of the things where I think we lose sight of the conversation is the relationship, is that text only takes us so far. Text is a great tool. I would say I might use text. Hey, would love to catch up with you for a few minutes. You've been on my mind. I use text to set up the phone conversation. hey, is there a good time tomorrow to catch up? You've been on my mind, would love to reconnect or love to connect. Got a couple of questions I thought you could help me with, or I would say I've got a couple of questions, thought you could help me with a little project we're working on. Is there a good time to connect by phone? And especially with my top maybe 50 or 100, Molly, get them on the phone,
Okay.
get them back in conversation and just schedule it.
I like that. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. Anybody else? Feel free to unmute, go to the chat. I can go back to the chat myself. Armin, new Ford, but haven't used it much for a while. Definitely go back to the basic. It's such a fundamental, Armin. Absolutely. Absolutely. Add that Ford sandwich is it's a powerful tool for making all your business conversations just that, conversational. All right, thanks for being here. I trust I'll see many of you next week when we get into messaging. And join us for Never Ending Referrals. We'd love to take you on a journey to immersion in this most important business asset, which is this thing called your database. See you, folks.